Now we have gotten to class control, and I'm sure a lot of people who teach ESL, who are subject teachers, will be interested in this part. This is very important for everyone who is actually teaching a subject. It doesn't even only apply to those who teach English, it applies to a whole lot of other things, but we are looking at this in the context of English. Now let's talk about the control mindset. We have already defined what class control is, and we have said that classroom control is something that is the domain of the subject teacher. Whoever is teaching the subject right now needs to have control over the students. That means you need the students to do something in particular, and that is what the control mindset is about. The primary principle, teacher, for classroom control is participation. The thing you want to happen is for the student to participate in the lesson that you have right now. And that means if you're even playing a game right now, you need participation for that game. That is what classroom control is. We're going to answer 4 questions that will put all of these into perspective. Why do you want control? Who exactly is it that wants this control? What is the duration for which you need that control? And what is the specific event that needs control? Starting off from the first one. Why do you need control? It could be for the entire lesson. You're teaching them a word. During your presentation, you need them to listen. It could be during practice, you need them to listen and play the game with you. You need them to listen and understand the rules of the game. It could be that it's for production when you want them to reproduce what you've taught them. You need them to participate in that. Whatever thing that you need the students to participate in, for whoever you need to participate in, you need control. You need to have control over them in that moment at that time. Let's have a simple example. You have 10 students in the classroom, and then you call 3 of them to play a game. Which of them do you need control over? Is it all 10 of the students or just the 3? Unless it's a game that requires participation by all 10, you don't necessarily need control over the 7. You need control over the 3. And I know you might say, oh, but it will make the classroom messy, Yes, that means if that is what you want, then you need to find a way to require involvement from the other 7. Else, your primary focus should be participation and control over the 3. So, who wants the control? It's very obvious. You, the teacher. You are the one who's going to play the game with the students. You are the one who's giving instructions. You're the one who's presenting. So, me as a teacher, I need you, the student, to participate in this game. I need you, the student, to participate in practicing this word that I have taught you. What is the duration for control needed? Is it for the entire 40 minutes of the lesson, which might be impossible in most cases? If you remember segmentation, if you segment your time, you can fix your classroom control requirements into the segments. So when it's time for this segment, whoever is playing this game, I require the utmost control from them. If you want control to be over all of the students, that means you need to find a way to make sure the activity actually encompasses all of the students. What specific events need control? Is it for games? Is it for your presentation? Is it for just a game that 2 kids will play? Is it for when you are going to practice words with them? You need to know what specific event needs control. The reason why this is different from why you need control is because the why is ideally always for participation. But the what specific event means if it's a game and 2 kids are playing the game, you need control from just the 2, not necessarily all of them. So at that point, sometimes as a student, as a teacher, when the other students are noisy and sometimes don't be worried. Just finish the game with these 2 and then go back to controlling the whole class again. Let's try and decode the problem with class control. What is it that makes classroom control so difficult? And the first thing is the native language of the students. You are in class, you don't speak the native language. Sometimes you could shout, "Keep quiet." It doesn't mean anything to the student. As far as they're concerned, that's the teacher just speaking some English. If you had shouted, "Keep quiet" in their native language, that would mean something. That is why we say that classroom control hinges on classroom management, because the classroom teacher, the homeroom teacher, usually in most cases speaks their native language, and that's easy to give certain controls that will make it possible for you, the subject teacher, to take over. Now, the nature of the lesson, if you make your lesson boring, if you make your lesson, your games in such a way that it just isolates certain students, then you're gonna lose them all the time. If you're having games where participation isn't required from all the students at the time, that means over the long run, you're gonna have long durations where most of the students are idle. Remember this, class control doesn't mean silence of the student. It doesn't mean the student has to be idle and do nothing. So you need to make your lesson interesting. You need to structure your lesson in such a way that it's always pulling them in. You give them time to rest, then you do something to pull them in. You need to have an activity that brings them all in. You need to shout something that, like response phrases. "Follow me," "follow you," that calls on to everyone. It calls for participation from everyone. Make your lesson interesting. Now, the rapport effect is, when you're a new teacher, it's going to be more difficult for you to have control over the student because there's no rapport between you. You guys don't have your dagons. You guys don't have you don't have something that's personal between you guys. But as time goes on and you begin to build these things, it makes it easy for you to call onto them and they will respond to you. Now, the final thing is the classroom management factor. If classroom management is terrible, classroom control will always suffer. When the classroom teacher puts the class in order for you, the teacher, the subject teacher, oh, feels like heaven. It's wonderful. That way, if you have an interesting lesson prepared, it's a wonderful day. There are sometimes you would attest to this, that you enter some classrooms and oh my, the class is so messy. Even the classroom teachers having difficulty putting things together. You're gonna have a hard time in lessons like that. So, classroom management is like the foundation on which classroom control will stand.